tuning in. We have in studio with us today Dr. Esther Munyangwe. Dr. Esther is the NUDO president. She's also the deputy health minister. And before her, until her appointment as deputy health minister, she was steering the genocide committee. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Esther.
Thank you, Jemima, for inviting me also to your studio.
Dr. Esther, there's a lot of issues we would like to talk to you about. The genocide issue, your role as a deputy health minister, and obviously your political role. So can you talk to us about how do you find your role as deputy health minister as an opposition political member in a SWAPO government?
All right, thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. I want to start by saying that maybe it's something uncommon, but it's not new in Namibia. I remember shortly after independence, Honorable Reki Diergaardt was a UDF member, and he served as a Minister of Sports or Deputy Minister of Sports. I also remember the late Advocate Kovongwidi, who was the first ombudsman while he was a DTA member, and he died a DTA member. So it's not new, it's not something we have seen in other parts of the world also, where parties are forming coalitions and so on. Of course, this one is not a coalition, because I don't want to call it a coalition, because coalition governments, the parties negotiate and they have conditions on how they are working together. I see this one as a working relationship. And people always say, but you are saving SWAPO government. For me, this is not SWAPO government. It's a Namibian government. SWAPO is the majority, of course, so is the ruling party, but it's a Namibian government. And for me, being a leader of an opposition party, it's an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to serve the Namibians. Mm-hmm. Because for me also, when we go to parliament, for example, you become a parliamentarian, of course, because you were campaigning on a certain political party ticket. But when you enter that house and you become a National Assembly member, I see myself as a national leader. And that is how I see my role, that it's an opportunity, and I want to thank the president for that, because I'm sure that he has seen something in me, and it's an opportunity for me to contribute, because when we are campaigning, we campaign sending the message out there saying that we want to change this, we want to do this and this to the Namibian people. So for me, it's an opportunity that I have been given to serve the Namibian government and to serve and to address issues that are affecting the Namibians.
Now, going to the genocide issue, last month, the OTA recalled you as head of the genocide committee. Do you think it was fair for the OTA to make such a decision? What do you feel should have been done otherwise?
Well, when I started getting involved in the issue of genocide, I was very young. And that is something that I carried with passion. I sacrificed a lot of my energy, time, to even raise the awareness that we have today, not only in Namibia, but globally. You know, people were talking about Romanian genocide, the Holocaust. The Nama Enovairo genocide was not known at all. And I feel proud that I could play that role to bring it where it is today. So, of course, the OGF, or the Ovairo Genocide Foundation, is a substructure of the Ovairo Traditional Authority, and they took a decision that given the position of a deputy minister might prevent me in carrying out the activities of the genocide movement. So it's a decision that they took. I accepted that decision, because sometimes one should also move on.
But do you agree that you being recalled was a fair decision? Do you agree that you now serving as a deputy health minister in the SWAPO government, do you agree that this would put you in a position where you can no longer push for genocide?
No, not at all. Because as I said, this is a working relationship. There were no conditions attached to it. And the freedom of speech is enshrined in our constitution. So what is there, or who would prevent me? Because genocide is one issue that is also affecting a certain part of the Namibians. And even now, even if I'm not the chairperson of the Genocide Foundation, I will not be at a platform where the genocide issue is being discussed and I shut my mouth. I will contribute. I will still continue fighting for it. We have so many things that are affecting the Namibians that we need to talk about. And I'm always saying that for us as Namibians to embrace one another, we need to allow people to talk about their pain. And there are so many different segments in this Namibian society that have been affected by the past, whether it is colonialism or the South African apartheid regime. We were all affected in different ways. And we need to deal with that pain for us as Namibians to start embracing one another. Look at the Hereros and Namas, they were affected. People might say, but these are things that happened in the past, more than 100 years ago. But the past doesn't go away. The pain is there, and psychologically, there is something that we call the intergenerational trauma that can be passed from one generation to the next. Take, for example, the South African apartheid regime. Everyone was affected, but who was mostly affected? The people at the borders. So that is the people in the north. They were affected in their own way. Recently we celebrated Kasinga. There are also people who were affected who have pain that they have never dealt with. So even if counseling was provided, counseling is an ongoing thing, and sometimes you need psychotherapy and so on. So we have different people in Namibia who have been affected differently, and we need to deal with those things, to allow people to create platforms for people to discuss these things, so that we can then embrace one another and see one another as Namibians. Because for now we are struggling. So that is why I'm saying that whether it was fair or unfair, there is no way for me that the issue of genocide would come up and I will shut my mouth and not participate and make a contribution. I'm taking examples of, there were other members who are SWAPO members. Take someone like Ida Hoffman, for example. She was a SWAPO member. She was in parliament, but when it came to the issue of genocide, she differed from the position of the government. So what would prevent me, a NUTO president, not to speak about? By the way, the motion in parliament was brought up by the NUTO president then. So it was a NUTO motion that was accepted and adopted by the rest of the people in parliament. So for me, I don't see myself, compromising when it comes to because it's an issue of social justice.
Okay. Now, Honourable, you have been criticised by some political parties for as being a sellout. They feel that your position as being appointed as Deputy Health Minister was done to silence you on the genocide issue, and as an opposition political member, obviously. And they feel that it was done to cement the SWAPO party's 2/3 majority in Parliament. What do you say about this?
That is, for me, that is nonsense. It doesn't make sense at all, because the same political parties that are criticizing me have formed coalition with the same SWAPO government. Take, for example, the PDM, Enoch Karara, at the local level. They formed a coalition with SWAPO, and they are with SWAPO in the local government, the municipality. So it doesn't make sense. And the other point is, some of the political parties that are also criticizing me were forming friendship with Dr. Itula, readily waiting for Dr. Itula to win and for them to serve in his government. Now tell me, what is the difference between a SWAPO-led government under the presidency of Dr. Itula and a SWAPO-led government under the presidency of Dr. Hage Geingob? What is the difference? So sometimes we like throwing stones unnecessarily. I even remember that when the first day of Parliament, when we were electing the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, the opposition party said, for SWAPO to show the world that democracy is not only in theory, we should at least have the deputy coming from an opposition party, right? And we elected. There was an extra vote that went to SWAPO. And what did they say? They started to create the impression that that was coming from me. Because they even said that we know the gender of that extra. And I said, my goodness, do I need to respond to that? Because on that ballot paper, there was just the name and the place where you could put your cross. There was no gender thing there. So why would you want to create the impression? And for SWAPO to win the deputy position, they did not need a 2/3 majority. They just needed pure majority, because you only need 2/3 majority when you change the constitution. Yeah. So we are contradicting ourselves. We were friends to Itula because we wanted to serve in his government. Now, if someone else is given an opposition to serve in the Namibian government, then it becomes an issue. You are a sellout. And I'm saying, well, you can call people names, but we should remember that when you consider certain people as your enemies, they are not necessarily enemies to everyone also.
Honourable, in your view and your experience over the years, do you think the treatment that have been directed to you, both the OGF, the OTE, opposition parties, do you think it would have been the same had you been a man?
Yes, that is something very important that you are bringing up, because the issue of sexism also cannot be ruled out. You know, we are living in a community which is male-dominated. We have to deal with inherent strong male convictions. And that did not only start now. It started, in fact, with campaigning for the Nuto presidency. Where you were given names. What type of woman are you? Is he a real woman? You know? And most of the time we have to deal with men with fragile egos. That's it. I'm sorry to say that, but men the way they are being brought up, women's place is somewhere there, and when it comes to certain things in the society, it needs to be done by men. So sexism is one issue that is also contributing to the treatment, the name calling, and all kind of things that I'm labeled to.
Now, Honorable, now before we conclude, can you, as obviously you also come here with the head of a Deputy Health Minister. We have we have now 11 people who are recovered of COVID-19. Can you please? We have also covered the story on the Romanian couple. What is happening right now in terms of the COVID-19 fight?
COVID-19. The Namibians should be proud of themselves. But now people want to hear the number increasing. We have 16 confirmed positive cases, 11 have recovered, and we have 5 active cases. People are asking, but no, the testing there must be something not okay with the testing. Why are we not doing mass testing? Why are we not doing community testing? All kind of things. Now, I think what contributed was, and that is a thank you that we should also extend to the head of state, because we didn't wait too long. I think the first case was identified the 13th or so of March. 14th of March, and the 17th, that is 3 days after, a state of emergency was declared. And 10 days after, the 27th, we started with our lockdown. So we didn't wait too long. We acted immediately. And one should also thank the Namibians, especially during stage 1 of the state of emergency, the lockdown. People really behaved and so on, and they adhered to the rules and so on. And one would also send a word of caution that even if we are in stage 2 now, it doesn't mean that Corona has gone away. It is still, there. And for people going back to work, some people now think things have gone back to normal. Stage 2 is the most critical one, because this is the stage that will determine, are we reversing back to stage 1 or are we moving forward to stage number 3? So that is why it is still important for people to avoid huge crowds. We understand funerals, everyone wants to be there. In some communities, people are linked. They have their matrilineal linkage, and some people are, very important people in the community, and he cannot be buried by 10 people only. We do understand that, and we sympathize also with the family members. But the issue is that while we have a state of emergency, it simply means that things are not normal. Things are not as usual. So it's a matter of adjusting our mindsets and our behavior, because it's better for us to try to prevent rather than, because when it hits our communities, we will have
serious problems.
And it will be terrible.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your insightful information.